Good morning, guys. Oh, good morning. What were my three best trades this year? Well, not necessarily dollar wise, but were my three best trades because, like, I wouldn't count some of my like shorts on the Chinese scams any of my best trades. But one of my best trades, I would say, was Baba down at $85 down here, early January. Just because it was a theme nobody was paying attention to. Hims was really good, and it was technically my biggest dollar trade right in here. And I caught this move. What else was really good? One that I didn't. I mean, I had a few awesome ones. I would say, I did a really nice job getting into a few leaders, maybe not just holding them, but like Palantir through this $100 level. Oops, right through here was awesome. CLS, same deal through that $100 level was really good. What else was really good? Obviously, because of the moves they went on to make, right? So just doing a good job of getting in positioned into names that would end up going to make a really big move. Hood was another one, even though I didn't catch this one, but I did buy this on this earnings gap up. So just making sure. I would say one of the things that for me that makes them good trades, even if I don't like crush it on the dollar side, is making sure that I'm in the stocks that go on to make big moves, right? Because you got to swing the bat, but you got to swing the bat on the right names. If you don't swing the bat on the right names, then how do you put yourself in a chance to catch something like this if you're not buying this one at the very least near the proper time? Right, my mistake was not rebuying it on the 25th or even the 7th or the 8th. The only other person's live streams I would actually watch when I first started out was Christian Koulibaly. That's it. But nobody actually live streams themselves during the trading day. That's not even really a thing. There are plenty of like chat rooms, but like actually asking somebody and then them pointing to the chart and looking at it and answering your question, right? And even like Christian, right? He was always focused on his own thing, and so am I. Like that's the most important is my own trading first and foremost. But I intentionally am looking out for people's questions so that I can help them out. But yeah, it's not very common that people even have live streams during the middle of the trading day. Do I enter trades before the breakout? The only time I buy a trade before the breakout is if I'm buying a pullback within the range using like a key moving average. So that's it. If I see a pullback versus a key moving average before the breakout, at least I think it's going to break out. But here's the reality of why I prefer to buy the breakout. The real reason I prefer to buy the breakout is because I get instant resolution. Right? When you buy within a range, I remember Christian one time said this and it always stuck with me. He said, imagine you're a betting man and imagine you show up to the Boston Marathon and you're like, oh, I want to, bet on who's going to win the marathon. And you just like randomly pick somebody out of the crowd. And like, that's the guy you end up picking. And it turns out that dude's got lung cancer. Right? Like that's the equivalent of buying a stock within a range. There is no saying that stock is going to go on to work versus like you let the race start and then you just buy the breakout and it's like the equivalent of just picking the fastest runner, right? Like you get to see how they act first and then you put your money down. So that's part of the reason why I personally also like to just buy breakouts, right? You get that immediate feedback. You know if it's going to push away from your average or not. Like it just starts to work right away when you're focused on the right pivot in a good market in a good group. Um, and again, there's like no mistaking if they're going to work or not. When you buy a pullback within a range, you don't know if it's going to push and then pull back within the range again before eventually going on to work. So that's like, I like that, that binary behavior. It's either going to work or it's not going to work. And then the other thing too that I like is like when I buy the breakout, I know exactly where I'm placing my stop. You could do the same thing on a pullback buy, but just know that on a pullback buy, right, it might pull back a little bit more than you thought, and then you got to kind of sit through that, and that's just it's just the reality. Breakout buy, you get that instant resolution, and that's the thing that attracts me most to buying a breakout. Yeah, gold was a good trade. I'm still in gold. I'm still in NEM as well. I wish I had bought Barrick and done it a little bit better, but yeah, gold's gapping up. Pre-market too. Gold is good. Gold is good. What specific trading strategies would you use if you were starting a very small account? Well, if you have a very small account, it's likely because you're not the most experienced trader, and that's totally fine. But one of the things that I would make sure that I'm doing is and I would tell this to, doesn't matter if you have a huge account or a small account, you have to be focusing your intentions on the best group. Like focus your attention and you're wanting to buy the stocks in the very best group. And then obviously, because it's a smaller account, you want to grow it a little bit faster, and maybe you don't have big liquidity constraints. You could trade stocks that trade 30 million, $40 million a day versus needing a stock that trades, $500 million a day or $100 million a day. Focus on the names that move a little bit faster, that are within the theme, and then know your setup, right? You have to know your setup. Like what is working in this environment? Is it pullback buys? Is it breakout buys? Is it earnings gap ups? Is it flat based breakouts? Is it high type flags? Is it high volume closes? Like what setup is in your playbook, not my playbook, in your playbook that you understand and you know how to get in, that is working in the current market that you're in? And then obviously, what is the strongest group in the moment, so that you're making sure you're focused on that as well. Yeah, HWM. Yeah, interesting name. Aerospace and Defense Group. Now that longs are working, how quickly will you get invested? Well, one of the things that I didn't do good enough on Friday, let's say, was buy a few other names that I thought were working pretty well, which, one of them I thought SNDK looked pretty good. And obviously it's gapping up 11 points overnight. We'll see what FSLR wants to do today. We'll see what CSIQ wants to do today. But it just depends, right? It depends. If the market's just going to continue to be choppy, then not that fast. But if the market's going to continue to reward follow through, I'm already invested on the long side, but how much faster can I get invested? I mean, I would realistically say it's a holiday shortened week this week. And then we've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week. If the market stays strong until like the first or second week of January, hypothetically, I could probably get 100% invested by that if I could find enough setups. Shall a beginner trader stick with static position size in order to keep things simple and gradually introduce himself to dynamic positioning? I would say yes. Like let your maximum size be 10% of your portfolio, 15% like at most. But if like you're noticing you're paper cutting yourself quite a bit and like you're losing money, and something's not working, it's either the environment that you're in or the stocks that you're trading or the setups that you're trading, really not anything else. That's all it can really be. But if you're still losing money and you're trading stocks in a good group, then your timing is just poor or you're trading the wrong stocks. In which case, I would tell you, you don't increase your size, you decrease your size. So if you could do that, that would be the only way I would do dynamic position sizing is, you scoot it down instead of up, right? You haven't earned the right to trade bigger than 10 or 15%. Oh, I don't know. Everybody's different. Everybody's risk tolerance is different. Here's the reality. You could have $100,000 portfolio, but $5 million of net worth. So you just naturally get way more aggressive. Or you could have $100,000 portfolio and you have $110,000 net worth. And so you can't get as aggressive. So it's really tough to say. Um, like I know guys that are up, two, 300% this year. I don't know their portfolio size, but in my thinking, there's no way they're trading with 10 or 20 or $30 million. So, right, I wouldn't expect somebody to get wildly aggressive or even be able to in this environment, even though it's been a pretty good year. Um, but I don't know, optimal performance for $100,000 account. I mean, realistically, if on my portfolio I can do 50% plus on the year, then somebody else with a 100K account should be able to do 100, as a discretionary trader, in particular swing trading. Like I know a lot of people up triple digits this year, lots of them. But again, that we're talking about like a good skill level, right? You have an understanding. If you have a 100K account, a quote unquote smaller account, then it's probably because you don't have like a super deep understanding of the markets just yet, and that's totally fine. But I don't know, 30 to 50. I mean, 30% is a shitload. Anything beating the S&P 500 is a great year. I think people like lose sight of that because like, everybody gets so enamored with the people on Twitter, posting their options trades for 500%, right? Assuming that they've got their whole account in there or something. So I think everybody lives in that, that Twitter sphere. I'm like, what's actually realistic? Yeah, I'll do an annual recap video. I got to do the December recap, and then sometime in early January, I'll do a yearly recap. Am I looking to add to Tesla today? Possibly. I added some on Friday, so on this little pullback into the 5 day, and then as soon as you started to 620 setup, I added a little bit more to my Tesla right in here. So I've got more Tesla. Now we're gapping up. I don't know if this is a good enough high handle, but if we take out, Friday's highs, then, I think we could be off to the races. The very least, a move to 500. What has to happen for me to buy a gap up? What has to happen for me to buy a gap up is there's got to be some actual good news, right? I have a hard time. Like I'm not going to be. I liked SNDK, but I'm not going to be buying an 11-point gap up on SNDK, and it could very well go on to work. But I don't feel as comfortable buying gap ups. I prefer gap downs because then when the market opens, you have your established low, and then as soon as it's breaking out over prior day high, right, that could very well be an entry. Yes. I thought I just answered that too. Not only am I still in my Tesla, I added to my Tesla on Friday. Yes. If a stock is more than 7 times its ATR from the 50, I trim some more. And then every ATR over 70 or 770 over 7, I trim and I keep trimming. 7 ATR, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Every ATR extension above the 50 simple moving average after 7 gets another trim. You have half position in LITE at 350. Yeah, heck of a move on Friday. Really nice entry. And then CIEN was another one that I kind of missed. Shame. These things are absolute monsters. Oh, well. Yeah, I think FSLR and CSIQ definitely look pretty interesting. That's probably the one cause for maybe, I don't want to use the word concern, but NAIM being so high, right? A lot of people are already in the pool. WDC a little maybe wide and loose here, but yeah, you're gapping up. I mean, this chart's just a beast. I don't know how I would get involved into this one necessarily, but it does look really good. WDC, STX, Path. I like the company. I like how tight this is, and now we've got a gap up overnight. Very nice. But maybe just not the best action. But I kind of like these pullbacks, right? You get this big ramp up and then you get a quiet little pullback, falling volume. Not bad. Not bad. PL, also another one, obviously in the aerospace and defense group. I thought maybe this could have been buyable on Thursday. PLAB, that's like Plabtronics or whatever it is. Photronics. Plabtronics. Photronics. It's a semiconductor, right? If I'm not mistaken. Good, but I don't know if I would buy this pullback into the 10. Let it build out a little longer and then go for it. Rubric, the group's just not all that good. If this thing could establish itself back above the 200, that would be better. But obviously, when you get a name like Zscaler and then CrowdStrike, it's just not the best action in that group. Orla, nah, I don't like this action. It's fine, it's gapping up, but there are better names in the mining sector than Orla. Focus on the ones that trade better. Nah, I would leave RDW alone. It's below a falling 200. Just a 50 simple moving average UNR. And it was ripping when Rocket Lab was doing well too. It's in the right group. Yeah, it's just a 50 SMA MAU and R. Moving average, undercut, and rally. It's just very nice. Yeah, I'm more optimistic because my stocks are working. Right? I buy a Palantir and it works. I add to Tesla and it works. I own Tesla and it's been working. I own a gold name. It's been working. So I'm optimistic because the things that I'm in are working. Right? So there's no reason to be pessimistic when the things that I own are working. And there's like more setups shaping up. Yeah, KRMN, interesting. Aerospace and Defense Group as well, if I'm not mistaken. Net, I don't really love the group at the moment. Hood I like. Even though it's below the 50 simple moving average, I just like Hood in general. I think they're a pretty good company. We'll see if they can go ahead and start pushing over the 20 simple moving average today into the 50. That would be pretty interesting. I'd like to own that name. It's earned the right to just build a new base up here with the move that it had. So I don't necessarily think the move in Hood is done. CRDO, could it just be a higher low setup? Maybe. And now we're gapping up as well overnight. Man, they're making it tough to want to go buy stuff today. But well, because of the gap up, probably wait the first 15 minutes of the open, and then we'll take it from there. See if there's some profit taking, and then maybe a pullback firms, and then I can get involved in a few of these names. The decisions for pre-market and when the market's closed that's when I put my watch list together. So my watch list is already done from the night before. And then, in the morning, obviously deciding, right, like what were my key levels from the night before, how's the market acting in the morning? And then obviously intraday action, are we selling off intraday? And then maybe I need to be a little bit patient, or are we ramping up and breaking my pivots and then I can take action? No, I don't know that I have a spot to buy PL. I think through the high volume close was the only real spot. 1750. Thoughts on AG? Yeah, it's in the right group. And it's gapping up today. You got in on 1210? Very nice. Is that when I bought NEM? I bought it on the 9th. Yeah, these names are working well. Yeah, NXT interesting for the solar sector. Needs to just get going above that 93 level. Do I have my sell rules written somewhere? No, in my head. Unless somebody asks and then they've written them down. Why not short penny stocks after they have gapped up multiple days and are crazy extended? I do. I do. The thing is we don't really have many penny stocks that have gapped up multiple days in a row and are crazy extended at the moment. Right? The last one I did was a UAMY. I shorted 18 and a half up here. So my issue was just covering this far too soon on the 22nd. But look at this fade. Do you use scanners to find? Yeah, that's how I find all my stocks, by scanning the market. Well, Sienna was just a nice little pullback buy right into the 20. Just a pullback buy, a higher low. You see how this thing is building higher lows, and it's in a good group. That's all it is. Plus, it had a really nice pivot. It had a really nice pivot. Look at the high here, 215.44. Look at the high here, 215.70. Look at the high here, 215.47. So, 215.70, and you're off to the races. Yeah, EQT, nat gas has been getting beaten up quite a bit. Commodities are best bought on pullbacks, but man, this thing got beaten up quickly. Maybe. Really could be interesting if it reclaims the 200. I like the way crude oil's gapping up a little bit overnight, but thing hasn't really caught a bid. Yeah, higher base on Rivian. Yeah, would be good. KSS Kohl's. Yeah, the retail apparel names have been acting pretty dang good. Right into the HVC on Friday and then bounced. Google is setting up. Google looks good too. I think it earned the right to pull back a little bit. It was showing awesome relative strength while the market was choppy. Yeah, I'm going to be watching FSLR and CSIQ. Frog a little choppy, but that one had a nicer level lower, right? $60 HVC on the third. Com's interesting. I was watching this thing so much lower, right down here. Right, you had this big move up, and this is what kind of drew my attention. I was like, "What the hell?" And then it just built this nice long base, and in here is where it started to look pretty dang interesting. Back above all key moving averages. Yeah, I'm still short Netflix. Yeah, there's been no reason for me to cover. Yeah, no reason at all for me to cover. I mean, it's literally below a sharply falling 50, below a sharply falling 20, right? I shorted this thing when it was losing the 200 right in here, right in here. 112. Then I got some more ads, and then I got some more ads, and I've had some covers into this weakness. Now it's just a matter of just sitting there, right, and then watching this thing go to 80. It's my thinking. How to find the best themes? Just watching the leaders. Yeah, so I like to look at scanners that literally show me 3-month relative strength, and you could also just scan for 3-month relative strength, and that'll put your eyes on the leaders. Right, that'll put your eyes on the leaders. Yeah, A Lab is interesting. The daily's a little shitty, but the weekly's interesting chart. Friday, I don't know that I would have bought this on Friday. Very subtle higher low, super tight day on Thursday. Friday, big push. It looks pretty good. Obviously, this pullback here is a little much, but earnings and sales on that name are unbelievable. Maybe go make a new higher high, 175s, and then any pullbacks at that point would be pretty good. CLF, Cleveland Cliffs, isn't this a steel stock? Yeah, I don't really hate the way CLF looks. You'd want to keep your eyes on ATI and STLD. ATI had such a nice setup too. Geez, what a gap up. I liked ATI right in here. Beautiful, beautiful entry on Wednesday the 10th. And then I had it as a high type flag setup going into Friday. And then now we're gapping up some more as well. Don't know if that sticks, but very nice. Yeah, I'm looking at Rivian. CRS is another interesting one too. Aerospace and defense. And with the gap up overnight, just so thin. Don't know if I could chase these gap ups, but yeah, Google Swing is good. I mean, I like it. Right? Don't do anything that makes you uncomfortable. That's rule one. But it's definitely one of the leading stocks in the market without question. How do I see quantum related stocks? My honest opinion, I wish I were still short Rigetti. They look terrible. They look absolutely god awful. I'm also short QUBT. I noticed how you didn't include that in your list. Smart. Former beverage company is a total turd. MDB's fine, but it just lacks a little bit of momentum. Right? Gap up on earnings and then you just kind of get choppy. And then you gap up on earnings and then you just kind of get choppy. Something's just not great. Rocket Lab's not actionable up here. No. I thought Rocket Lab on Tuesday, right? You'll notice that like all this strength on Wednesday couldn't even take out Tuesday's lows. So way more relative strength in a Rocket Lab over an ASTS, and that's why this one ended up making the best move. But yeah, no, I don't think it's actionable today. But yeah, I think KSS looks good. I think KSS looks pretty dang good. No, I think Friday was the spot if you kind of wanted to get yourself in over that tight day. I don't know that I'm chasing this gap up. I'm not into chasing gap ups, especially on no news, right? Pullbacks into ascending moving averages at this point still feel like the right thing to do. Alto Ingredients, Thursday last week. Nice little chart. Super, super, super thin. Trades 5 million bucks a day, 4 million bucks a day. Nothing. I would just leave it alone. If something takes out like your preferred area to buy something, 17 and a half, I'm not chasing something up to $20 in pre-market. Right? The entry was 17 and a half on Thursday, or if you really wanted to get in because you noticed Rocket Lab was acting well on Friday, fine. But at this point, right, closes at 19. I'm not a buyer at 20. I don't just chase gap ups. There's just far too many stocks out there to trade to think I need to chase stocks. It's just not not necessary. Yeah, that's another option too, Ivan. Yep, using the last prior structural low. Problem then is you have to size down even further because sometimes that stop is a full 7% away, and then taking 10% positions. You don't really want to be risking 1%, 0.7 to 1% of your portfolio every time you take a trade. Can I explain what makes a good undercut and rally? One, the stock is in a good market. Two, it's showing really nice relative strength like a Rocket Lab before that happens. Right? Really nice relative strength. Nice little pullback into the 50. Really awesome relative strength on Wednesday where it couldn't even take out Tuesday's high in a good space group with multiple stocks acting well. Rocket Lab, ASTS, and PL definitely fit the bill. And then that's it, right? When you get really nice day one action after you buy. And it's only known in hindsight after you buy. but the relative strength was definitely there on Thursday. Yeah, sometimes I get off the 5 minute and I look at the hourly. 5 minutes just for my entry, but like all the ideas that you take in trading should be derived from a daily chart. Your ideas should be derived from a daily chart, and there should be multiple stocks within that group acting well. Guys, I repeat the same thing so often about groups because it is so important, right? I don't just repeat the phrase groups like all stream long for my own benefit. I do it so that you guys hear that and then you realize, like, don't just look at a chart by itself. What's that chart doing within the group it's in? If every other chart within that group acts like shit, then it's not a group you even want to be looking at. But if you're looking at a chart and it's got a nice consolidation, and then you realize like 5, 6, 7 other charts within that group also have a nice consolidation, then you really want to be honed in on those names, right? Sometimes groups aren't that big, but you at least want to find a few stocks within that group that are acting well. Yeah, I think these travel stocks are pretty interesting. LVS, Win. Obviously, the airline stocks have been doing pretty well too, but I don't know that I'm going to trade these names. What's the main difference between me and Koulibaly? Christian was much more comfortable trading very high ADR names, much more comfortable. That's about it. That's about it. Maybe he was a little bit more patient than I am. But also, when he was streaming, he was like on year number 10. Also, too, people got to remember when he was streaming, it was 2020 and 2021, right? I mean, he was streaming for a while, but when everybody saw him be super successful, it was a very easy market, and he'll tell you the same thing. But I'd say we're fairly similar because we have a lot of the same influences. Dan Zanger, Mark Minervini, Pradeep, right? A lot of the same influences. And then he was obviously one of mine. How do you catch the move before it's obvious? Here's the thing. It's okay for the move to be obvious. It's like I will go back and relate to ARK. We're acting as if ARK right here wasn't an obvious flat-based breakout. It sure was. And when it broke out, I was there to buy it. And guess what? It ended up being a really nice trend. There's nothing wrong with the chart being obvious. A chart being obvious is actually a good thing because then you're not the only one who sees that move and you're not the only one getting into that breakout, which can cause a breakout to last a little while and it to really push away from your average. So there is nothing wrong with a breakout being obvious. No, I don't have a long-term portfolio. My wife does. Names that I've gotten her into. At least 1 month of relative strength minimum. And then I look at 3 month and 6 month as well. I don't really care about 1 week of relative strength. That's just not enough for me to really care. There's nothing to do with Rivian. Yeah, there's nothing to do with Rivian here. If you own Rivian from lower or you bought these higher low setups, like you bought this on Thursday, great, but there's nothing left to do. Let it work, let it retighten, let it build a higher low. Yeah, like if you really needed to own path on this pullback, I don't know that I do, but if you did, maybe a 5 minute opening range break. RDW is not interesting. I don't understand why a stock below the 200 SMA is interesting. I understand the group that it's in, but it's just gotten totally demolished. It's down 65%, 67% from the peak. Why is this one interesting? If this thing's actually going to go higher, it has to live above the 200 SMA and establish itself above. Unity, big stage 1 base. Yeah, interesting stock. I've seen a lot of people mention it recently. EOSE, damn choppy. Yeah, we'll see what this does, but this has got a clean, obviously a big push, and it's been in a really nice trend. It's just got to build a whole new base up here. CRS isn't thin. CRS, I think, trades like a $250 million a day, 300 million, I think. I could look. 320 million bucks a day, more than enough. Thoughts on GFI? I've tried to get myself positioned in GFI a handful of times, and now I'm on the outside looking in. So I initially bought this thing on whatever day this was, Friday the 5th, and it's just been kind of trending higher ever since. I tried. And I also tried buying it on the 11th, and I got stopped out flat the very next day, Friday the 12th. It's been a pain in the ass, but it does look like it's trying to go higher. And I won't be chasing it, though. I still own NEM, and that one's just been much more liquid, much more linear, much cleaner. The other one I tried buying, which was, my mistake not sitting in it, was this Barrick. Should have used the 50 SMA as my guide. I tried buying it as a 20 SMA UNR, just as a little higher low here. And then it gaps down on me the next day. I let it go, and then that ends up being the low. And it's just been perfect ever since. Lemonade, fine but choppy. I don't think I'm going to be buying this one personally. Fine but choppy. BTU's interesting as well. Coal stocks have been acting really nice. Yeah, coal. Yeah, this is definitely a low cheat setup. Yeah, it looks, BT looks pretty good. DJT, I'm not trading that dog shit. I don't try to headache myself with the shittiest stocks in the market. It's exactly what DJT is. It's one of the, it's it's at the bottom of the list. Doesn't even make my list. Doesn't even hit my radar, right? Like, why would I want to own this thing when there's like no clean technical setup? It looks like this, right? It's just this dog shit pump stock. No thanks. I can't even be nice to that name because there's nothing to say that's good about it. There's nothing good. IE. For me, it's a little thin, unfortunately, but I don't know. It looks like they're in the what sector is this? Is this electronic components? No, copper. Electronics. Ivanhoe Electric. Copper. There's also EGO for copper. Or wait, what is it? Is it ERO? Yeah, there's ERO. And then there's HMB or HBM, excuse me. So many ticker symbols in my head. HBM's another copper name. I thought HBM was interesting through this pivot. 17 and a half. It's been slowly grinding higher. Thoughts on CoreWeave? Got a lot of work to do. Yeah, maybe it's bottomed. Maybe it has bottomed. Lots of work to do. I like NBIS a little bit more personally. Didn't get beaten up as much. Denison Mines, boy, the fact that you have Denison Mines, DNN, and GEV on the same list. So DNN, it's crazy. The first time I owned Denison Mines was down here when it got back above the 200, and it was the slowest, choppiest dollar stock ever. Long time ago, early 23. Yeah, Denison, whatever, and then GEV, better. Man, the ugliest close on Wednesday. Gap up, and another gap up. Is there news there on AMD? CRK, Comstock. Nah. I mean, just doesn't look all that great yet. Yeah, HWM, this one's interesting. Nice little downtrend line break on Friday. Have I talked about MU yet? Yeah, there's nothing to do here for me yet. It looks very strong though. Would I consider buying TSLL instead of Tesla? My wife's got TSLL. I don't necessarily need to trade it because I've got more money to put to work. So, owning like these super volatile names, not necessary. No, I mean a lot of stocks triggered. Like I bought Palantir on Friday. I thought again, we talked about Sienna earlier. Like, what was wrong with Palantir on Friday? Right? What was wrong with this one over 187.70s, 189 or 188? I mean, there's nothing wrong with buying this thing in here. It's a really nice resilient chart. Yeah, CRS could be actionable today. I don't know how much I'm going to be chasing a gap up this morning, but Lunar's a laggard. Lunar is a laggard. Yeah, that 331 level was kind of the level I was interested in. How many trades do I take on average per week? Well, my average is something like 20, I don't know, like 20 something a month, 20 a month. So one a day, basically. SNDK, the entry was on Friday. I'm definitely not chasing this thing up another $10, $11 in pre-market. My positions at the moment are NEM long, Netflix short, Palantir long, QUBT short, Tesla long, ExxonMobil long. What a big base on this thing. So commodities are a little bit tough to buy on breakouts. So I've been kind of playing that crude will give an undercut and rally below October's. So we'll see if this one ends up working, but definitely not your traditional setup. And it's very slow. So maybe not one that you'd even want to trade. What's my maximum ADR? My maximum, I mean, I don't know that I really have a maximum, but like, over 8 is we start to get a little bit up there. 8, 9, right? Like when I was trading Oklo, I want to say this thing has like a 8 ADR itself. So yeah, 9.8. This is about the maximum. So like when you buy Oklo out of this little breakout, that's a huge move. So that, like Oklo is about like the top that I would trade in terms of ADR. 8, 9, 10, something like that. Was CAT a high volume close setup on Friday? Nope. So the close here is 585.49. Haven't quite gotten there. Yeah, I'm waiting. Like, I'm not looking to get rid of like my brand new positions. Like, for instance, like Palantir is a brand new position. I'm not looking to do anything with it here. Really nice push on Friday, slight little gap up today, right? Maybe if we go and like fill the gap, then I'll trim some. But what's the main difference? I notice like Jeff is much more comfortable trading the lower price stocks than I am. Like I saw him mentioning Donut, and this just is not something that I'll catch myself ever trading. But like I'll notice like he will take note of the stage 1 base, right? He'll take note of the volatility contraction, right? And then he'll buy something like this potentially. I also noticed like him mentioning some of these Argentinian stocks, and for good reason. Really nice move up, really nice volatility compression, and then you get these nice moves. So he's much more comfortable trading lower daily dollar volume stocks, which isn't all that crazy. Um, yeah, that might be one of the big major differences. Pan W short, I don't really see a spot for it. Yeah, Kulamagi was definitely influenced by Mark Minervini and Dan Zanger and Pradeep. Do I ever enter a trade if its stock gaps up? Yes, on news, on earnings. My thoughts on Bitcoin? I'm just leaving it alone for now. I don't really see, like, are we finally starting to build a low? It very well could be. Um, but the 200 has kind of started to slope down. I don't think I have to own it down here. GRAL is in a better group for sure. So healthcare related. I don't know. Do I think we're going to see some strong selling first week of January? If I told you yes, it wouldn't move the needle in my portfolio. If I told you no, it wouldn't move the needle in my portfolio. The last thing I really want to do is, like, how do I say this? The last thing I really want to do is influence myself in a way that then doesn't let me react to what price is actually telling me. If price is telling me that things are trying to go higher, but I've already predetermined that there's going to be some strong selling in the first week of January, but that thought was wrong, then now all of a sudden I'm like influencing myself to not buy stocks because I've convinced myself there's going to be strong selling in the first week of January. So the reality is I try to just eliminate that kind of thinking from my trading process because it does not move the needle in my portfolio. Instead, I would like to get to the first week of January and then there be some strong selling and then say, holy shit, there's some really strong selling in the first week of January. And if there were stocks acting poorly, how do I get myself positioned in the names that are showing relative weakness or very extended for a potential short, right? So I like to react instead of predict. I don't know. I know he'll talk about it in the Market Wizards book, and he could have very well had a bad 2024. But yeah, I heard something similar that he struggled, um, and he lost a good chunk of his portfolio. I don't use TradingView to scan. I use FinViz or I use DeepView or I use my scans on Toss. KYMR, therapeutic stocks. Just be careful with these therapeutic slash biotechs. You have to know all their dates. You have to know if they have cash on hand. I'm not an AEO short. No, I ended up cutting it for flat on Friday. So just as we started to push right back through here, I was getting out of this thing flat. So not enough weakness for me to hold into the weekend. What are my top 5 stocks to watch? I mean, there's quite a few. You've got CSIQ, you've got FSLR, you've got Tesla, you've got Nvidia, you've got Amazon, you've got HWM, you've got Google, you've got Alta, you've got energy to watch, you've got CRS, you've got CCL after the earnings gap up, you have AppLovin. I mean, there's so many stocks right now that still look pretty damn good. Yeah, MDB's fine. Just, just doesn't really trade like it's got these big momentum bursts in it. It'll gap up and then just kind of sloppily chop around and then gap up and then just kind of sloppily trend higher. And it's trending higher. That's the key. But I'm not going to really buy this. I don't really love that price action. Any thoughts on OR? It's gold name as well. OR royalties, lagging. Lagging. If you're a gold name, you should be out to highs already, right? If you're not out to highs already, like Barrick or PAAS or NEM, then what the hell are you doing? Right? I don't want to own laggards. I want to make sure that I'm in leaders. Oh, Baba's buying chips from AMD. Somebody's got to do it. Have I ever been married to a stock due to their story? I don't know about the word married, but like really, really trying to make sure that I don't lose sight of it and get myself positioned. Tesla. What's the crunchy stuff I eat in the morning? Chia seed. Chia seed pudding with granola. All right. I think that might be it, guys. I got to get myself going. hopefully you guys have a really nice start to your week. It's a holiday shortened week, so you guys just have a safe holidays too for anybody who won't be on for the rest of the week. And I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Have a great one.